Secondly, I decided I would pray every day for at least an hour. It could be morning or night, whenever I could find time. I made myself a commitment to pray. That was my personal development spiritually. I still do that today from age 15. I decided I would fast at least twice a year, 20 days once every year, and 14 days at one time every year. I've been doing that since I was 15 years old. I still fast 21 days without food, just water, and 14 days without food, just water. I still do that up to this very day. Now, that was my regiment which I keep. So people look at me and they say, how did you become so matured spiritually at such a young age? How did you know so much? How come you are so seemingly intelligent or have so much wisdom? It's not a gift. It's a result.
Literature focusing on changes in men's lives has indicated that the male is in a state of crisis and internal conflict. Without a clear idea of their identity, men are trying to cope with the collision of new societal expectations and traditional ideas of what a man should be.
What men really need to discover is their underlying purpose, a man's position. And actions must flow out of his purpose, not the other way around. Asterisk, 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 to discover the purpose of something, never ask the creation. Ask the Creator. We find our purpose only in the mind of our Maker.
And so if you're going to grow as a male spiritually, you have to organize your growth. The same way you organize yourself to go to the gym and work out with your weights and to jog every morning, you got to do the same thing spiritually. You got to organize your life. And then the third thing I decided to do was I would read 4 books every month. I made that decision when I was 21 years old. I am now 53. So you can calculate how many books I've read over the past few years from 21 to 53. And I read these books and I try to keep my commitment. My most precious gift in my life, next to my wife and my kids, is my library. I'm reading a book right now. I read on the way here and going to be reading it when I get back on my trip back. It's called The Politics of Jesus. It's a very intriguing book. And I got another book waiting for me, back for me to start reading as soon as I get home for my next week. So I spend at least $200 US every month, on books. It's the quality of books that I buy. Someone said to me one time, how can you afford to spend that amount of money on books? I said to him, if you think knowledge is expensive, try ignorance. Then I told them I can't afford not to buy the books.
God created everything with a purpose, and His purpose is the key to our fulfillment. The purpose of something determines its nature, design, and features. What God plans is intentional, meaningful, and guaranteed to succeed.
If males understand the purpose and responsibilities God has given them and the true design of their relationships with females, they can be free to fulfill their destinies and potentials. They can be the men they were created to be.
Men's underlying purpose transcends culture and tradition. Knowledge of what it means to be a true man cannot be acquired by observing the confused culture around us.
Whatever you invest in, you become good at. Whatever you invest in, you become good at. Whatever you invest in, you become good at. Men, you need to invest in your development. You invest hundreds of pounds every year in sports games. So you're good at the sports. You're good at knowing the names of the sports players. You're good at knowing the scores, but you don't know anything spiritually. because you don't invest in that area. Some of you invest in clothes, and I like good clothes too. You pay 200 pounds for a shoe, 300 pounds, 400 pounds for a suit, and then nothing on books. If there's one...
Men must adopt an entirely new way of thinking. They need to think in terms of inherent purpose rather than roles. Roles have never been the true basis of a male's identity and worth. Roles can be helpful or harmful, but ultimately they merely reflect culture and tradition.
If males are going to fulfill their purpose as men, husbands, and fathers, they must rediscover God's plan for them. Otherwise, they will hurt those around them, even if it's unintentional. Where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable.
The thing this conference must do with your life is to re-anchor you to become a heavy anchor. And you have to invest in your development. Your father never read books. You never saw him read books, so you don't have a desire to read. There was no environment in your house to read. Maybe all he wanted to know was what was the cricket score, what was the soccer score. He had no passion for other books, just the newspaper. And so you have no desire to read. And I love the way Paul mentored Timothy. He said, Timothy, when you come to see me, don't forget my books. He said that in prison. Even in jail, he was thinking about his library. Bring my books, he says.
God has given males a unique leadership influence. The male is the key too. Building strong, enduring social infrastructures, stable families, sane societies, and secure nations. As the man goes, so goes the family, the society, and the world.
Please become men who are kingdom men. Kingdom men, they grow in wisdom and knowledge and in stature, yes, but in also favor with God and with humans. People go to my website sometime and they become confused. They go to my book table back there and they become confused. Do you know why I become confused? Because they look at my table and they go, what do I buy? And what they mean is, he has written on so many different things, different subjects. How can a person do that? Can you imagine how many books I had to read in order to write those books? And how diverse my reading had to be? To write a book on men, for example, I had to read about 15, 16 books on men and get research from different colleges just to get the foundation to write the book. It took me, I'd say, 2 years to put material together, produce this book that takes it to another level. Investment. I want to recommend that you invest in yourselves. Sacrifice and wear that suit a little longer and buy some books this weekend. You know, just organize your life and say, look, I'm going to read at least 2 hours a day, a chapter in a book. You'll be amazed how quickly you finish that book. And what's amazing is once you start reading your 2 hours, it's going to become so exciting, you're going to add another 2 hours.
What is a real man? Someone who knows the reality of who he is and lives in that reality. This knowledge starts with understanding the significance of being created purposefully by God.
God created every man with a purpose. It is possible to do good things, but not the things that are best based on God's purposes for you.
Males don't read. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the one sitting behind you. Lift your right hand with me right now. Say, Lord, give me discipline to pursue knowledge. Please change your life before Christmas. I saw two men last night. I really appreciate them. I don't know where they are. But they went and they bought all the books last night. I autographed every one of them. And I said to them, I said, I love you. You remind me of me. Nothing comes to you by osmosis. And to read a book, you got to get away from friends and turn the TV off. And that's tough, man. That remote control is a powerful spirit. Yeah. So I want to recommend that to you. And then finally, I'd like to just state that as a man, one of the things I did growing up through my years, from teenage through my 20s and 30s, is that I always instituted what I call a daily devotional with God. I'm out of my daily devotional with God is where I got most of my revelation about purpose and potential. Those books have sold millions of copies, and they're still in the best-selling top 10 list today. But most of that came out of time with God for years. And I discovered, and I understand, because keeping a daily devotions is very hard. I know, and if you're married, it's even worse. Because, you know, you got to, as a man, you got to call the family together and have time together. My wife and I made a decision that we will bring up our kids. No one else will do that. And so we had to commit ourselves to have devotions every single morning with our children before they went to school. So I cut back on my travels so I could be home. The first 7-8 years of my children's life, I didn't travel much because I wanted to be home to have devotions with my son and daughter. And every morning, devotions right on time, 6 a.m. And I led the devotion. I want my kids to know that I am the spiritual leader, so I had to lead it so that my son and daughter could pick up that this is what the man's supposed to do in their minds. And I organized a devotion because there was not too much to help me create a devotion. So I created devotions for myself. So I took the books that I had written and I made them a part of our devotional experience. And each one of my son and daughter, they had to read a chapter in Proverbs every morning, ask questions about it. Then they had to read a chapter in one of the books and we talk about it. And then we pray for God to keep us today and bring those principles in our lives.
Good deeds are not a substitute for rightness. Knowing and fulfilling your purpose is the only way to do what is right. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Males are not divine experiments. When God created them, He had already predetermined what men were supposed to be and do.
Since God created everything with a purpose, men need to go to Him if they want to know their true reason for being. If they try to change His plans, they are in essence fighting against themselves and the way they were designed to function.